The cash special can cause serious injury or death if handled improperly. Please read the safety warning card and the operator and maintenance manual prior to handling or operating the cash special tool. Always treat the cash special as if it were loaded and never point the cash special at something that is not safe to shoot. Never put your finger on the trigger until you are ready to fire or solely rely on the safety mechanism of the cash special to prevent an accident. The safety mechanism is not a substitute for safe handling procedures. Always wear protective glasses, earplugs, and other appropriate protective equipment when handling or operating the cash special. Always use the proper caliber power load. Failure to do so can cause damage to the cash special and injury to yourself or others. The following video is meant to cover the basics of cleaning, maintenance, and operation of the cash special tool. It is not intended to be a safety awareness session and is in no way to be used as a substitute for proper job training or equipment care. The cash special captive bolt tool is available in a 22 caliber or a 25 caliber configuration. All cash special tools are shipped in a lockable gun case. The power loads to be used in the cash special should only be those recommended by the manufacturer. Included with the cash special are the following tools and instruction manuals: piston bore cleaner, breech cleaner assembly, push rod, cleaning brush, extractor spring retaining screw wrench, undercut cleaner, handle barrel bolt wrench, maintenance and repair manual, user's manual, and the Safe Operations Instruction Sheet. We recommend the following tools and safety equipment for cleaning and maintaining the cash special: clean shop towels, hammer, 5/16 inch punch, 3/16 inch punch, pick, flat edge screwdriver, wire brush, G96 gun cleaner, Copa slip thread grease, bench vise with soft jaws installed. It is also recommended that anyone servicing the cash special should wear safety glasses and some form of hearing protection. Before performing any maintenance on the cash special, it is important to verify that there is not a live power load in the chamber. To do this, hold the tool by the barrel and the muzzle, keeping your hands and fingers away from the muzzle end of the tool and the trigger area. Next, pull back on the hammer carefully until it locks in an open position. Now pull back on the firing block until it is in a locked position. You can now see the exposed chamber to verify whether or not there is a power load in it. Once determined, close the firing block assembly by pushing it forward. To close the hammer, it is necessary to hold the hammer back while compressing the trigger. Slowly return the hammer to its position against the firing block assembly. Do not simply pull the trigger to close the hammer, as this can damage the chamber mouth. To begin the cleaning procedures of the cash special, first you must unscrew the muzzle from the barrel. Set the muzzle aside. Remove the red stop washer and set aside. Now remove the first 3 recuperator sleeves and set them down in the order which they came off of the bolt. Now pull the bolt out of the barrel and remove the remaining sleeves from it and continue to place them in the order which they came off of the bolt. We will explain why this is necessary later in the video. Remove the blue flange washer and set to the side. To clean the bolt, it is advisable to spray the bolt with some G96 gun cleaner solvent. To remove carbon deposits from the bolt, use the cleaning brush and clean the piston area of the bolt, including the rear of the piston area. It is also necessary to use the brush to clean the stem of the bolt. Now clear any debris from the Pollux end of the bolt using the pick. Finally, check the condition of the Pollux end of the bolt. If it is badly damaged, it should be replaced. If minor damage is present, the inside of the Pollux end of the bolt can be sharpened by using a coning tool. Do not remove material from the outside of the Pollux end to sharpen. It is important to cycle the order of the recuperator sleeves so they will last longer. The sleeves at the piston end of the bolt and at the end of the bolt will wear much faster than those in the middle. Therefore, it is advisable to cycle the 2 end sleeves with the center sleeves on the first cleaning of the tool. Then for each subsequent cleaning, the cycle should change to the 2 sleeves adjacent to the center sleeves, and so on, until you start back at the 2 center sleeves. If the sleeves are severely broken down or are split or cracked, they should be replaced. Do not use gun cleaning solution or any other liquids to clean the recuperator sleeves. The blue flange washer should be inspected for wear around the outside diameter. When the outside diameter is smaller than the diameter of the recuperator sleeve, it should be replaced. To clean the blue washer, use a clean shop towel. Stubborn deposits can be removed using a wire brush, being careful not to leave any abrasion marks in the washer. The red stop washer should be inspected for any significant damage to the bore. If severely damaged, it should be replaced. If little or no damage is present, it can be reused. To clean the red stop washer, repeat the steps that you followed for the blue flange washer. The recuperator sleeves should be inspected and cleaned. To clean, use a clean shop towel and wipe any debris off of them. You can now reassemble the bolt. Place the blue flange washer on first, then the recuperator sleeves in the rearranged order, and finally the stop washer. The next step is to clean the barrel bore. Secure the cleaning brush onto the bench vise. A new brush will be a very tight fit in the barrel bore the first time used. It will wear itself down after a few uses. To clean the barrel, push it over the brush back and forth while also rotating it. If there are stubborn deposits, spray some G96 cleaning solution into the barrel to loosen up any built-up deposits, then repeat the brushing steps. If the cleaning solution is used, it will be necessary to use a clean shop towel and wipe dry the inside of the barrel of any excess cleaning solution. The muzzle should be cleaned next. First, remove the muzzle barrel lock washer. Inspect the inside bore of the muzzle for wear. If wear is present, the muzzle should be replaced. Inspect the bolt bore for wear. If the bore is worn oval, it should be replaced because this may cause the bolt to break due to sideways deflection. To clean the muzzle, push it back and forth over the brush while rotating at the same time. If stubborn deposits are present, spray some G96 gun cleaning solution into the muzzle and repeat the brushing procedures. It will then be necessary to remove excess cleaning solution with a clean shop towel. The muzzle barrel lock washer should be inspected for wear. If cracked, split, or flattened, it should be replaced. To clean, use a clean shop towel and wipe off debris. If stubborn deposits are present, use a steel brush, being careful not to leave any abrasion marks. The barrel undercut should be cleaned next. Place the undercut cleaner with the 2 protruding blades in the upwards position in the bench vise. Put the barrel onto the undercut cleaner until it is seated firmly onto the tool. Now rotate the barrel 360 degrees while applying sideways pressure to clean the undercut and the front face of the breech. This will scrape any debris that is built up in these areas loose. Now tap the barrel on the workbench to allow any debris to drop out of the barrel. Next, clean the breech piston bore using the piston bore cleaning tool. Secure the piston bore cleaning tool into the bench vise. Place the barrel over the tool until it is seated firmly. Rotate the tool 360 degrees to clean the piston bore. Remove the barrel and tap it on the workbench to allow any debris to drop out of the barrel. The barrel has a hole on it that will allow the gases from the power load firing to be exhausted from inside the barrel. It is important to make sure the hole is clear of any debris that might block the exhaust of the gases. Use a pick to clean out the exhaust hole if debris is present. Finally, there is a hole on the back side of the hammer. This is for applying the cash pistol oil for lubrication of the inner mechanical components of the cash special. Put a few drops of cash pistol oil into this hole. We can now reassemble the cash special. First, remove the red stop washer from the bolt. Insert the bolt assembly into the barrel. Then place the barrel lock washer onto its seat in the muzzle. Now insert the stop washer into the muzzle. Next, take the muzzle and screw it back onto the barrel. Hand tight is sufficient. It is recommended that the firing action be cleaned on a weekly basis. The firing action is based on the U.S. gunmaker Remington's rolling block safety mechanism. To remove the firing action, place the barrel assembly into the vise. Take the 5/16" punch and the hammer. Locate the punch onto the lip of the locking plate and gently tap it down, exposing the locking face. The hammer pivot and the firing block pivot can now be gently tapped out of their seated positions by using the 5/16" punch and the hammer. You will now be able to lift and remove the hammer and the firing block assembly from the barrel. Now we will remove the main barrel assembly from the handle assembly. This is done by using the 7/16" wrench. Locate the wrench onto the rear nut and turn it so that it is just slightly past the end of the bolt. Locate the front nut and turn it so that it too is just slightly past the end of the bolt. Then take the hammer and gently tap the handle barrel bolt so that it is seated against the side of the barrel. Do the same with the front bolt. This is done to protect the threaded ends of the bolts as they are removed from the assembly. Now take the 7/16" wrench and remove the nuts completely from the bolts. Finally, using the 3/16" punch and the hammer, gently tap out the rear handle barrel bolt and the front handle barrel bolt. By removing these bolts, you will now be able to remove the barrel assembly from the handle assembly. Having removed the barrel assembly from the handle assembly, remove the sear rod and the sear rod spring from the handle assembly by lifting the sear rod end pin up and pulling back at the same time to remove it. At this point, we have now removed the main barrel assembly, firing block action parts, the sear rod, and the sear rod spring from the handle assembly. If the extractor spring is intact, there is no reason to remove it. The same is true for the trigger. If it is operational, there is no need to remove it from the handle assembly. You can now clean the parts of the firing action. Use some G96 gun cleaning solution. Spray around the extractor spring and wipe down with a clean shop towel to remove excess debris. Check that the spring sits symmetrically inside of its face. If the spring has moved, it may need to be replaced. We have now disassembled the handle assembly from the barrel assembly. Shown here are the locking plate, the hammer, the firing block assembly, the hammer pivot, the firing block pivot, the handle barrel bolts, the handle barrel bolt nuts, the sear rod, and the sear rod spring. First, take the barrel. Spray some G96 gun cleaning solvent into the assembly housing and the outside of the barrel. Take a clean shop towel and wipe down the entire barrel assembly of all debris. Set it aside. Similarly, take the locking plate, use some G96 if necessary, and wipe with a clean shop towel. The hammer should be cleaned in the same manner. When cleaning the firing block assembly, remove the extractor from the firing block assembly. Clean the extractor, the firing block, and the pawl, checking that the pawl is moving freely on its pivot. Check also that the firing pin moves freely up and down inside its seat. It is recommended to put a little cash pistol oil into the firing pin hole. You can now reassemble the extractor onto the firing block. To do so, place the extractor onto the firing block so the tongue is pointing away from the firing block. The pawl can now be introduced to the extractor. Set aside. Clean the hammer pivot and the firing pin pivot using a clean shop towel. Clean the handle barrel bolts and nuts with a clean shop towel. Remove the sear rod spring from the sear rod and check that the sear rod end pin is intact and tight in its seat at the end of the sear rod. Clean the sear rod and the sear rod spring with a clean shop towel. Reinstall the sear rod spring onto the sear rod. It should cover the entire length of the sear rod. If not, replace it with a new one. In all instances, if there are stubborn deposits, a brush can be used to remove them. A pick can be used to remove debris from small areas where it is difficult to reach and clean with a shop towel. Before assembling the barrel assembly to the handle assembly, it is recommended that the sear rod and the sear rod spring be installed onto the handle assembly first. Please note that the cutout on the front of the sear rod should be in the upward position when installed into the access hole for the trigger. Place the spring onto the sear rod and insert the sear rod into the access hole, pushing against the spring. The spring should be slightly compressed. We will now reassemble the cash special barrel assembly, handle assembly, and firing action assembly. Place the handle assembly into the vise. Place the barrel assembly onto the handle assembly, lining up as close as possible the bolt holes. Insert the front handle barrel bolt into the barrel, tapping gently through using the hammer. Use the 7/16" wrench to square the head of the bolt so that it is parallel with the bolt recess, so that when it is seated all the way, it is lined up correctly. Align the rear bolt holes. Now take the rear handle barrel bolt and tap it into the barrel using the hammer. Use the 7/16" wrench and turn the head of the bolt so that it too is parallel with the bolt recess, so that when it is seated all the way, it is lined up correctly. Tap the bolt until the head is seated in the recess. Now place the rear and the front nuts onto the bolts and secure them into place. Do not over-tighten the nuts. Only turn them so two sides of the nuts are standing perpendicular. This is so the locking plate can be assembled onto the barrel assembly to hold them in place. You can now reassemble the firing block assembly. Remember that the pawl must sit on the left-hand leg of the extractor spring, and the lip on the front of the extractor should sit underneath the center leg of the extractor spring. It is recommended to change the angle of the tool in the vise in order to install the firing block assembly. This will allow the pawl to remain in contact with the extractor, which is necessary to install the firing block assembly. Insert through so that the extractor face on top of the extractor sits into the recess in the ridge block. Now the extractor pivot can be inserted by tapping it in gently until it is seated. Reposition the tool in the vise. Then it can be determined whether the firing assembly has been installed correctly. To do so, pull back on the firing block gently and observe whether or not the extractor moves with the firing block until it releases. If the extractor does not move with the firing block or does not release itself, you have not correctly installed it onto the extractor spring. We will now install the hammer. To do so, ensure that the slots at the base of the hammer locate over the pin at the end of the sear rod. Having done so, push the hammer down against the firing block face and tap in the hammer pivot gently. To check that the hammer is installed correctly, pull back on the hammer and listen for a click to verify that it is locking in place. To release the hammer, hold it back while pulling the trigger and gently allow the hammer to seat itself against the firing block. Do not dry fire the hammer back into place, as this can damage the power load chamber. Finally, reassemble the locking plate. When doing so, it is useful to put some pressure on the hammer pivot and the firing block pivot so they are not pushed back out when installing the locking plate. Position the plate over the front nut and over the hammer pivot, the firing block pivot, and the back nut, ensuring they are lined up correctly, allowing the locking plate to seat itself over the nuts. Having done so, drive up the hinged plate so that it locates itself over the grooves of the two pivots. On this handle assembly, you see that the extractor spring is broken. The leg here is broken as compared to a normal new extractor spring. We will now replace the broken spring with a new one. First, you will need to unscrew the Allen screw from the handle assembly. Here you have the Allen screw, we now have the lock washer, and then the broken extractor spring. To replace with a new extractor spring, make sure the extractor spring is the correct way up. The coils should be in the upward position as shown here. Do not install them in a downward facing position. The lock washer helps to prevent the screw from unlocking and the extractor spring from turning. Place the extractor spring here and fit the lock washer on top of the spring. Now screw in the Allen screw by hand as far as you can. Finish by using the Allen wrench to tighten. Visually ensure the spring is central to the rail of the handle sides. Once centered, now tighten the Allen screw. If the trigger is working properly, it is not necessary to disassemble it for cleaning purposes. If it is not working properly, it will need to be removed and the broken part replaced with a new one. To disassemble, secure the handle assembly into the bench vise. Use the hammer and a 3/16" punch to slowly remove the trigger stop pin. Put it aside. Now remove the trigger plunger, and the trigger spring. Clean these components with a clean shop towel. It is recommended to apply a small amount of grease to the spring before reassembly. If the spring is set or broken, replace it with a new one. To reassemble the trigger assembly, first place the trigger spring onto the trigger plunger. Now position them into the hole in the base of the handle assembly. Next, take the trigger, position the divot machined onto the back side of the trigger over the pointed end of the trigger plunger. Push the trigger into position so the flat part of the trigger is in the uppermost position and the stop pin hole is lined up with the handle assembly holes. Use the hammer and gently tap the trigger stop pin so it is flush on both sides of the handle assembly trigger position area. We will now reassemble the sear rod and the sear rod spring. You must first determine if the sear rod spring is in good condition. Examine the spring to make sure there is no distortion of the coils and that there are no broken coils. In addition, check to make sure it is not set. A new spring is shown here alongside a set spring. You can see the difference between the two. Take the new sear rod spring and place it over the sear rod. It is important to note that the slot on the sear rod should be in the upper position. In addition, the chamfered end of the sear rod should be in the downward position. Place the spring over the sear rod and place the sear rod into the sear rod hole on the handle by slightly compressing the spring and pushing forward into the sear rod hole. Here, we will take a look at the placement of the sear rod end pin when installed on the sear rod. It may be that the sear rod pin is sheared off and a piece may be in the hole, or it may be that it has come completely out and is missing. A new end pin can be installed easily by locating the end pin into the hole, then carefully knock the end pin through the hole. Now place the end pin over the separated area between the teeth of the vice jaws and continue to knock it through using the hammer. The end pin should be visually centered on the sear rod so it fits correctly into the hammer slots. When it is assembled correctly, the pin does not protrude out of either side of the hammer. The firing pin should move back and forth easily in its slot. If the tool is not firing properly, if it is misfiring or there is an insufficient indent in the rim of the power load, it is possible the firing pin is worn, corroded, flattened, or broken. You can see that it has a nice rounded form on the front end of the pin. It moves freely in the firing block assembly. If this area needs attention, we recommend that it be sent to your authorized service center for repair. To make the tool ready to use, cock the hammer by pulling it back until you hear it click. Pull back the firing block. Again, you will feel it click. Then insert the power load. In this position, it is safe and cannot fire even if the trigger is pulled. You can leave the power load in the chamber. If you accidentally pull the trigger, the power load cannot be fired due to the rolling block safety technology as demonstrated here. If you are not going to be using the tool for several minutes, it is recommended that you remove the live power load from the chamber. To fire the tool, push the firing block forward so it is against the breech face. The tool will now fire as soon as the trigger is pulled. Once fired, to extract the spent power load, pull back the hammer. Open the firing block, which will activate the extractor device, and pull the spent power load out of the chamber with your fingers. If there is any problem with the extractor or the chamber area, such as a misfire or the power load cannot extract from the chamber, use caution. The power load can be ejected from the chamber by using a flat-edge screwdriver by locating it in the slot on the side of the extractor and push back. This will move the power load enough so that it can be removed with your fingers. Do not use a knife, screwdriver, or any other sharp implement to physically remove the cartridge, as this could damage the mouth of the chamber. If the bolt should get stuck in the barrel due to rusting, first remove the muzzle and all of the sleeves and washers. The bolt can then be tapped out by using the push rod that is supplied with the tool. The procedure to do this is to pull back the hammer, pull back the firing block, and insert the push rod through the half groove on the top of the firing block and push through the chamber until it makes contact with the back of the bolt. Do not release the hammer, as the pressure from the hammer on the push rod will put pressure on the chamber, which could damage it. Now very carefully, using the hammer, knock the bolt out slowly and remove it when possible. Maintain the pressure on the hammer and pull out the push rod. If, when fired, the hammer and firing block are forcibly blown back along with the spent power load, a number of features need to be looked at that may cause this. First, check the relationship between the firing block and the hammer. Close the firing block, then close the hammer. Check to see if the firing block will rattle against the hammer, or whether the hammer and the firing block can be opened by pushing back on the firing block until both are closed. If it is not possible to move these, it is more than likely that the relationship between these two parts is secure. If this occurs, you should first check the interlock face located here. When the action is closed, there should be no gap or very little gap between these two faces. If that is the case and they are mated, then the blowback is not being caused by the interlock. If it is determined that there is a gap in the interlock, it is recommended that the tool be sent back to the authorized service center for repairs. If these are intact, then the problem is caused by a weak sear rod spring. The only other reason would be if you have a heavy-duty cash special and installed a standard sear rod and sear rod spring instead of the heavy-duty parts. The cash special is available in both a .22 caliber and a .25 caliber chamber. These safety instructions are relevant for both calibers of the cash special. Included with each cash special is the instruction booklet and the safe operation warning card. It is recommended that anyone using or maintaining the cash special should wear eye protection and hearing protection. When you first handle the cash special tool, assume that it may be loaded with a live power load. To pick up the stunner, safely grab it by the barrel, staying clear of the muzzle end and the trigger. Pull back the hammer. Pull back the firing block and check to see if there is a power load in the chamber. If a live power load is present, remove it. Please note that with the rolling block safety, when the firing block is open and the trigger is pulled, the tool cannot fire. When you want to make ready to fire again, simply push the firing block forward against the chamber face. Be sure to keep your fingers clear of the area between the hammer and the firing block. When releasing the hammer to the position against the firing block, never simply pull the trigger. Always support the hammer with your thumb or finger and pull the trigger back. Gently let the hammer release. This is to ensure that there is no risk of damage to the chamber face. When handling the tool, there are a number of important factors related to safety. Never point the tool either loaded or unloaded at anything you do not wish to shoot. Never point the muzzle end towards yourself. Never put your hand near the end of the muzzle. Never put your free hand over the gas vent hole on top of the barrel when the tool is being fired. It is also a good idea to keep your fingers clear of the trigger until you are ready to actually fire the tool. Use the handle to hold the tool. Never fire the tool into air. This can put excessive stress on the tool and its components. This is especially true when using the non-penetrating head with the cash special. When dry fired, the knocker head will break off and could potentially injure someone. Never carry the tool in your pocket loaded or unloaded. Before starting any maintenance on the tool, be sure to verify that there is not a live power load in the chamber. Pick up the cash special carefully by the barrel. Pull back the hammer. Pull back the firing block and now check the chamber. If there is a live power load in the chamber, remove it. To clean and maintain the concussion head assembly, you will need the following tools: a 14mm wrench and a 16mm wrench, a pick, cleaning brush, clean shop towels, wire brush, G96 gun cleaning solvent, and Copa slip grease. First, unscrew the muzzle extension from the front of the muzzle. Then, unscrew the main muzzle from the tool, which will also withdraw the bolt with it. Set the barrel assembly to the side. Now it is necessary to unscrew the concussion head from the main bolt. To do so, you will need to locate the 16mm wrench onto the rear of the bolt. Then locate the 14mm wrench onto the flats at the rear of the concussion head. Place the concussion head to the side. Remove the main muzzle and the bolt. Take the concussion head and remove the rubber thread locking spring from the hole on the threaded end. Now disassemble the bolt assembly. Remove the stop washer, remove the recuperator sleeves, and keep them in the same order which they are removed. Remove the blue flange washer and set down the bolt. Take the main muzzle and remove the muzzle barrel washer. We have now disassembled the concussion head assembly. To clean the bolt, use some G96 gun cleaning solution and lightly spray the bolt. Take the steel brush and clean the piston end of the bolt, including the back side, the main stem of the bolt, and the thread. Any stubborn deposits in the thread can be cleared using a pick. Once done, wipe the bolt dry with a clean shop towel. Now looking at the recuperator sleeves, it is necessary to remember that the end two sleeves will wear faster than the inner sleeves. Therefore, it is necessary to rotate the sleeves during each cleaning to ensure long life of the sleeves. To clean the sleeves, use a clean shop towel and simply wipe them clean. Do not use any cleaning solvents on the sleeves. Inspect the sleeves for wear or damage. If they have lost any material from the diameter, they should be replaced. Next, clean and inspect the blue flange washer. Clean with a shop towel. If there are stubborn deposits, carefully use the steel brush to remove them, being careful not to gouge the face of the washer. Repeat these steps for the stop washer and the muzzle barrel washer as well. Next, the main muzzle. To clean the main muzzle, spray some gun cleaning solvent into the bore. Use a steel brush mounted between the jaws of the vise. Push the main muzzle over the steel brush back and forth to clean the inside of the bore. Inspect the front face of the muzzle bore. If it shows any indentation or severe damage, it should be replaced. This can be caused by using an insufficient number of recuperator sleeves or severely worn sleeves. Also inspect the bolt for wear. If present, it can cause the bolt to break by being deflected sideways on impact. If this is the case, the main muzzle should be replaced. The concussion head should be cleaned by spraying some G96 gun cleaning solution on it and brushing it with a steel brush. Now gently tap the concussion head on the workbench so any debris falls out of the threaded bore. Any remaining debris can be removed by using the pick. The rubber thread locking spring will be slightly bent upon first removal. This is due to tightening down on the initial assembly. Providing it has not lost significant material, it will be fine to reuse this locking spring. Finally, the muzzle extension should be cleaned by using the steel brush. For reassembly, first install the blue flange washer onto the bolt. Now place the recuperator sleeves over the bolt. Then place the red stop washer onto the end of the bolt. Now place the muzzle barrel lock washer onto its seat inside the main muzzle and slide the main muzzle onto the bolt assembly. Then insert the rubber thread locking spring into the concussion head. Take the assembly and start the thread onto the bolt. Tighten by hand as far as possible. The sleeves will be pre-compressed when the concussion head is tightened down. Place the 16 mm wrench onto the flats of the end of the bolt. Place the 14 mm wrench on the flats of the concussion head and tighten. To install the muzzle extension, use a small amount of copa slip thread grease on the threads. Screw the muzzle extension onto the assembly. It is now ready for use. To attach it to the cast special tool, use a small amount of copa slip thread grease on the threads of the barrel and screw the concussion head assembly onto the barrel. As a final check, remove the muzzle extension. Ensure that there is a gap between the main body of the concussion head and the front face of the main muzzle. This means that the piston end of the bolt is sitting securely in the piston bore of the breech. If the concussion head is in contact with the front face of the main muzzle, this means that the concussion head is preventing the piston end of the bolt from returning to the main bore. This is caused by the main muzzle from being tightened securely fully down. Failure to maintain this gap will result in loss of power. Once determined it has been assembled correctly, screw the muzzle extension onto the main muzzle. The Cash Special is available in two versions: the standard duty, which is available in both the .22 caliber and the .25 caliber configuration. For identification purposes, the standard duty tool has a black handle. The Cash Special heavy duty version is available in a .25 caliber configuration. The heavy duty version comes with an orange handle. The parts that are different between the standard duty and the heavy duty tools are as follows. The muzzle for the standard duty tool looks like this. It is fitted on the standard 22 caliber and 25 caliber tool. The bolt on a standard duty tool will protrude out of the end of the muzzle. The heavy-duty 25 caliber tool has the 4 slots on the end of the muzzle. The bolt will be recessed on the heavy-duty model. The standard duty tool is fitted with a red stop washer, and the heavy-duty tool is fitted with a yellow stop washer. Please note the difference in the thickness of the two washers. The heavy-duty stop washer is much thicker than the standard duty stop washer. The standard duty bolt is flat on the piston end of the bolt, while the heavy-duty bolt is dished out on the piston end of the bolt. The hammer on the standard duty tool has a smaller slot that fits over the sear rod end pin. The heavy-duty hammer has a larger diameter slot to accommodate the larger sear rod end pin. In addition, the slot legs are not the same length. One is shorter than the other. The standard duty sear rod uses a standard-sized end pin which is smaller than the heavy-duty pin. The heavy-duty sear rod has a different shaped sear rod and is longer than the standard sear rod. The standard duty sear rod spring is shorter than the heavy-duty spring. The sear rod spring, when installed correctly, will completely cover the sear rod from end to end. The same is true for the heavy-duty sear rod spring. If you install the wrong spring onto the sear rod, it would be either too long or too short, depending on your configuration. It is very important in all of these cases that the standard duty tool is fitted with the standard duty parts, and the heavy duty tool is fitted with the heavy duty parts. If the handle cover on the heavy duty tool needs replacing, it is very important to replace it with an orange handle, indicating that it is a heavy duty tool. Shown here are the differences of the bolt configurations that come with the Cash Special 25 caliber dispatch kit. The short bolt assembly comes with 6 recuperator sleeves, 1 heavy-duty stop washer, and 1 blue flange washer. The medium-sized bolt comes with 8 recuperator sleeves, 1 heavy-duty stop washer, and 1 blue flange washer. The heavy-duty long bolt assembly comes with 9 recuperator sleeves, 1 heavy-duty stop washer, and 1 blue flange washer. It is important when maintaining the spare parts on the heavy-duty bolts that the correct number of sleeves and the correct stop washer be used based on the bolt configuration shown here. This video is provided by a limited license by Bunzl Distribution USA Incorporated for personal use only. The video is provided as is, without warranty of any kind, express or implied, including, without limitation, any implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose, and licensee shall bear the entire risk as to the quality and performance of the licensed product. Some jurisdictions do not allow the exclusion of implied warranties, so the above exclusions may not apply to licensee. This limited warranty gives licensee specific legal rights. Licensee may also have other rights which vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Licensor is the owner of all intellectual property rights in and to the video, including all copyright therein and thereto, and reserves all such rights.